This is a Film Stories original podcast.
Welcome to the Starlight Ballroom. Hey!
Hello, and welcome to Shipwrecked and Comatose, a Red Dwarf podcast here on the Film Stories podcast network. However, we are still in Nottingham for the last time this series for Maid Marian and her merry men. I'm your host for this one. My name is Carl, and I'm joined by Colin Jackson Brown. Ahoy, Colin.
Ahoy, hoy. How you doing?
I'm full of cold.
You were last week as well.
Yeah, it's not been a good one, these summer ones. I always get them. I get two big ones a year, one at the start of officially summer and then one at winter. But they tend to last a while.
6 months each.
I'm going to keep the energy up because we're here to talk about the Series 1 finale of Maid Marian, which is the Whiteish Knight.
Well, at this point of the episode, it's the White Knight.
Oh, true. It is, actually. Broadcast on Thursday, 21st of December, 1989, so just leading up to Christmas. We begin with some lovely shots of a knight, and I think we've all watched enough Robin Hood adaptations to know that this is a knight coming home from the Crusades.
Yes, who could it be?
Well, yeah. However, first things first, the theme.
I did not get the reference. This was completely lost on me. Basically, it is a absolutely spot-on parody of Clannad's Robin the Hooded Man, which was the theme from the Robin of Sherwood TV series, which I know Mark Adams was a massive fan of. And I think that's why Mark doesn't like Maid Marian and Her Merry Men very much, because he was a fan of the thing it was parodying. But yeah, that was too early for me. Robbie, and obviously probably Carl as well, because you're the same age, a few months younger than me. I think that was on from 1984 to 1986. So we were between 2 and 4 at the time when that was on.
So I remember watching it because it used to get repeated a lot, from what I remember.
I don't ever remember it being on in our house. I think, was it an ITV thing? Because we were definitely more of a BBC house.
Yes, it was. It was an ITV one.
Yeah.
So yeah, the theme, I actually looked into it because I didn't remember the theme either. Yes, it's there is a music video for it, which I found.
Yes, I've seen that.
We're safe enough in this episode. I will put a clip of... First, I'll put a clip of the Hooded Man from Clannad, and then I'll put a clip in of the Whiteish Knight.
Yes.
What ends up being the theme of this episode, and you can hear for yourself.
For illustrative and educational purposes. Fair use.
Exactly. Clannad's lawyers, please. Mind you, if they didn't sue Tony Robinson for this, they're not going to sue us.
It will have been more widely heard on BBC One on the broom cupboard than it will be on Shipwrecked and Comatose.
Exactly. So I will put a couple of clips in there now. Very similar.
I think it comes under parody, though, which, although I think it's always a grey area. Copyright law is weird because it's different in different countries, and I think most of the stuff that you read about it is American copyright law, which is totally different.
Yeah. The vocals are very similar to the point where it's like, is this Clannad having a laugh? Because the show was off the air by this point. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if Tony Robinson went to them and said, look, I'm doing this thing. I'm doing a bit of a spoof on Robin of Sherwood. Do you mind just doing this? It's only 2 lines. I can imagine Clannad going, sure, why not?
Potentially. I don't know enough about Clannad to know whether they've got that kind of sense of humour or to know whether they would do it on the budget that the BBC would have given to make this series, because kids' TV gets a much lower budget than grown-ups telly anyway.
So we get these establishing shots of the night. The Merry Men are having a meeting with the villagers.
Just before the meeting, there's a bit where there's 2 blokes doing some maintenance on the smallest castle in the world. The castle is probably about 10 feet tall. It's it's smaller than most people's sheds.
Yes. Yeah, and pay attention to them because they will come back later.
Yes.
So the White Knight storms through them and then storms past the Merry Men, who are currently having a chat with the villagers because they're trying to distribute things out to them, and he basically splashes them all with mud.
Yes. To which Gladys shouts, "Juggernaut!" at him, which amused me.
They do debate his name because they don't think it's right to call him the White Knight.
He's more creamy beigey.
Yeah, he's more creamy beigey, but that I thought we were going to hear that in the song for a second as well.
Well, no, because you can't call him the creamy beigey Knight. How about Whiteish Knight?
Yep. Ron comes out with the Whiteish Knight, and then the theme song and the titles do change to reflect.
So we've already had the title of the episode appear, but it comes back with "ish" scrawled on it in red pen.
Robin also comes out with a really good line about they're going to settle on the Whiteish Knight because the White Knight is a zonking great fibberoony. Which is a very Rimmer line, I thought.
It is. Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Fibberoony is definitely a Rimmer word.
So now we've established the night, we go to the castle where King John is screaming for his breakfast.
Mushrooms, tomatoes, newts, and frog spawn.
Yeah, I thought that. It's like it started out all right, and then like newts and frog spawn, and it's.
It could be a delicacy, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe it's a royal thing. We don't understand them.
Yeah,
they're just like us, you know.
Well, one of them was at the Taylor Swift gig the other day that I was at.
True. So yeah, the sheriff is getting this all sorted while Gary is behind him going through the post and what's arrived, including that copy of the Daily Worksop, which has the headline, "I swallowed a live chicken, claims record-breaking nun."
Which is great. I like that.
Yeah. Obviously, this is a parody of the Sunday Sport, which had been around at that point. It was in 1986, and I looked at some of the headlines from the first few years of the Sunday Sport.
Okay.
Adolf Hitler was a woman. Aliens turned our sun into a fish finger.
That's beautiful.
And Donkey robs bank, which could have been in this episode.
Yeah.
And those were in the first few years of the Sunday Sport.
Amazing. There's one that goes around on the internet every now and again about somebody shoving cream eggs up their bum.
I didn't realise it's still in publication.
Yeah, it is.
It's 3 times a week it comes out, but you can't buy it in like WH Smith's or anywhere like that. You've got to go to independent newsagents.
Okay.
because of the I've been re-watching Bottom recently, so because of the Norks.
It's a good word. I like it.
It's a great word. So yes, apart from the The daily work's up, the post has arrived, the King's library book is overdue, there's a couple of bills, someone sent a postcard from Jerusalem, a couple of bribes, and an ad for some French windows.
Yes. Which he then...
apparently it could be cheaper than you think.
But yeah, he reads out the postcard, which is from Dick, but it doesn't really elaborate on that, I noticed.
No.
I think these days there would have been something a lot more explicit in there of them saying, that's Richard III. No, Richard I. I don't know how many. Yeah, it's the first one, wasn't he? That's King Richard coming back from the Crusades. But they don't say that. They just let you work it out yourself, which is... It's quite cool, because it would have made it way more obvious these days, I think.
Yeah, definitely. It would be one of those like, oh, hello, my sister who's getting married today. It'd be one of those kind of things.
Yeah.
So I think they say it's from Dickie. He gets called Dickie all the way through.
Yeah.
And he says he's having a lovely crusade and will be back at St. Swithin's Day.
Yes.
Did you happen to look up St. Swithin's?
July the 15th. And there's a song by Billy Bragg called St. Swithin's Day. It's a very good song.
Yeah, you pray to him if there's a drought, basically, don't you, St. Swithin?
It's something like King's Lynn or something like that. If it rains on St. Swithin's Day, the tradition is that it will rain for the rest of the year or some bollocks like that.
Yeah. It's very Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
So all we know is that Dickie is coming back on St. Swithin's Day.
But yeah, so the sheriff realises from this that the king is not going to be happy, so tries to get Gary to take the tray up with the breakfast. The king yells for him to do it, so he has to carry it up.
Yeah. He says if he personally is not standing in front of him in 5 seconds, which Gary has a bit of a shit-eating grin and hands it back to him.
So the sheriff takes the breakfast up to the king's bedroom, where the king is sitting in bed with sort of like a... I can't remember if we've seen him in his... what he sleeps in.
I don't think we have.
Yet. We may have done. Yeah. But he's wearing basically like a big sort of long john, sort of almost like a baby grow kind of thing, with a bonnet that kind of looks like a flying helmet. But he's also got his metal-studded leather glove on one hand as well.
Yeah,
which
it's really showing that he's a giant baby, but he's still a violent giant baby.
Yes.
So he gets his breakfast, and then we do go back to because we do a lot of back and forth on this one.
Yes.
Back at the village, the merry men are distributing booty.
Yeah, that made me laugh because I'm childish.
There's a hat, what we think is a table decoration, and a teddy bear that's blue. Robin's quite taken with the teddy bear and gives it to Kelly Bright, who I'm just going to call Kelly Bright now because she doesn't have a name.
She's just credited as girl, isn't she?
Yeah. Even though she gets more lines. Kelly Bright doesn't want it, and when Robin suggests what should we call it, she calls it Rip-Off. Which Robin, not paying attention, goes, yes, that's a lovely name. Now, I think this is a bit of a dig at the Care Bears.
Okay, yeah, could be, because it's a colourful bear and it's a rip-off, yeah. Now I can dig that.
Yeah. Because I looked and they were like 86 to 89 was prime Care Bear.
Yeah, that
time,
makes sense.
Apparently.
Yeah, my little sister definitely was into Care Bears at that point, and she would have been about 6.
Nobody seems to want any of this stuff, but so all in all, it's not going well.
No.
We then shoot back to the castle, where the sheriff returns to the kitchen, wearing most of the breakfast and the tray around his neck.
Yes, as it's been smashed over his noggin.
Whoever this visitor is that sent the postcard, they now need to make him feel incredibly welcome, otherwise the king is going to lose his job.
And if the king loses his job, the sheriff loses his job.
Then we get probably one of the best back and forth sequences I think we've had in the whole series.
It's to Ronnie's level, isn't it?
It is. where one of them says something and the other one takes it as the answer to something else.
Yes.
The sheriff says we need to go get the royal tea set because it's the most expensive thing, it's the most valuable, and it'll look really good whenever whoever it is comes and sees it. It's the one that William the Conqueror had on his tea break. Oh, at 10:66? No, 11:15, Gary. It was just that back and forth. You've got food on. Yes, Gary, loads of food. We need to put loads of food on. and I think this is the two actors, because they're both writers.
Yeah.
Coming up with this, and it's just so nice to see them go back and forth, and it feels like a more comfortable cast.
Yeah, it's a really good sequence, definitely. You've also got in the conversation, you've got the sheriff listing lots of food that they need to have, and he mentions lobsters in jelly, baby swans on toast, and hedgehogs in aspic. So we were talking about hedgehogs last week. Here's another hedgehog reference. Do you know what aspic is?
I used to, but it seems to... I thought about this, but it went out of my head.
It was really popular in the 60s and 70s for people making meat jelly. And it's basically, the really fucking horrible jelly bits that you get in a pork pie?
Yeah.
That's basically aspic.
Oh, right, okay.
Which is the reason I don't like pork pies, is because of that bit. But yeah, I thought I'd better look it up because there's an album by King Crimson called Lark's Tongues in Aspic, which is an amazing album. I've loved that album for years and then never looked up what it is, so I looked it up earlier.
Okay.
And that is what it is, and it is absolutely fucking grim.
Yeah. So, enjoy that if you're listening to this episode while you're having your tea.
Yes. Particularly if you're eating a pork pie.
Yeah. I do like a pork pie, so that's going to be interesting. Because my brain will retain that information. The whole sequence between Gary and the sheriff is, I put it, probably one of the best things we've seen so far.
Yeah, that's fair.
The sheriff is really excited about the plan. They just need to get it ready for St. Swithin's Day, which neither of them knows what it is.
Yep. Graham walks in and wishes them a happy St. Swithin's Day.
Yeah. It's today. So the plan's great, but they have minus hours to do it. So we go back to the village. No one wants the merry men's booty.
Tat.
Yeah, tat.
That's an excellent phrase. Nobody wants the merry men's booty.
So they decide to leave and go try and find another village that appreciates them more. But little Ron wants Rip-Off and runs back to get him.
Yes, and the rest of them just fucking leave him.
Well, it is little Ron, they probably think he can take care of himself.
He can handle himself, can't he?
But as they're walking away...
It's not like he's going to get kidnapped or captured 2 episodes in a row, surely.
Well, no, that would just be silly. As this is happening, the sheriff and Gary and Graham arrive and kidnap villagers for the return of Dickie.
Yeah, there's a little bit on there where he's talking to Gary and Graham. He says, right, we want no violence unless absolutely necessary. And then charge! And they run in with their swords waved in the air.
Yeah, and we hear screaming as well. While all this happens, the Whiteish Knight is looking on.
He's observing.
So, the Merry Men have got back to the hideout. Marian's had enough and actually disbands the Merry Men.
Yeah, well, Barrington and Rabies are playing Snap very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Pack up your bows and arrows and get down to the dole office.
Barrington and Rabies don't seem super phased.
They don't. I think it's not that long since they were all, before they'd formed the band.
There is a joke about youth training schemes.
Yes, which didn't exist by the time we would have been old enough to go on them.
While this is going on, Robin laments that if King Richard was back from the Crusades, things would be different. Because, he's the real king.
Marian in this episode, it's even more so later on, it doesn't seem right for her character. I think it's because I fucking hate royalty.
Yeah.
I am very much an anti-royalist. And I really like Maid Marian. She's one of my favourite characters in media, and I've always really liked her character in Maid Marian and Her Merry Men, and then for her to be all sort of fawning over royalty, I just find really, really jarring.
If a member of royalty was at that concert the other day and you were there with that proclamation, what were you really doing at Taylor Swift, Colin?
Well, this is the problem. I was there watching the gig.
Yeah.
I didn't know that both Prince William and Keir Starmer was there as well.
Oh.
I'd have probably got thrown out if either of them were there for going on a fully left-wing rant at both of them.
To be fair, if you took a shot at Keir Starmer, it would probably bounce off the hair.
But yeah, no, I'm glad I didn't get thrown out because the gig was awesome. And so anyway, the villagers turn up.
Yes, they do. Literally, just as Marian states, nobody wants their help. Snooker leads them in and asks for help.
Because the sheriff and Gary and Graham have stolen all of their food and taken all the children, including little Ron.
Yes. Well, yeah. I like the fact that they prioritise it as they've taken all of the food and the children.
Yes. I mean, that's understandable.
Yeah. So, yes, they're all in the castle. I put in, Marian plays hard to get, but Robin completely stamps on it. So she's like, well, I suppose we could. And Robin just immediately is like, of course we will.
That's a really... It shows how much his character has grown over the series. Because in the first episode, he would have been the one going, what's in it for me? Can't be asked, kind of thing. Whereas now, I mean, I think it is because he wants people to see him as the heroic Robin Hood, but it is still the right thing to do.
Yeah. It's purely ego-driven, but it's... I don't know. There's been bits in this series where it doesn't appear like it has been. The bits where it's like, what kind of outlaw do you call that? A nice one? You know, just stuff like that. It looks like he's actually coming into the Robin Hood that we all know about a bit. But yeah, he's still a bit dim and egotistical. Marian manages to pull it back and gives a bit of a speech, and they're off to Nottingham to get the kids back. Yay! Freeze frame. Back at the castle, the sheriff terrorises the children, thinking he's being nice.
He's really unsettling, isn't he? He thinks that he knows how to, to talk to kids, but the way he's doing it is almost terrifying. It did amuse me when he was introducing them as Uncle Graham, Uncle Gary, and I'm Uncle Sheriff, because the sheriff hasn't actually got a name.
Yeah, I mean, Gary and Graham are kind of all right, because I think they've dealt with kids before, but Sheriff has no idea.
They're also on a similar wavelength to them.
Yes, there is that.
This is why I can relate to kids. I want to play with the same toys they do half the time. Because I am childish.
It's also revealed at this point, in a clever bit of physical acting by Tony Robinson, that one of the children isn't a child, it's little Ron.
Yes.
However, he's got Rip-Off in front of his face and his hood up. And when the sheriff takes Rip-Off away, he's too busy looking at Rip-Off to realise little Ron is not a child.
Although, to be honest, after last week's episode where they didn't notice the beard with the Marian and Sheriff thing, they may not have noticed anyway.
Yeah, true. Meanwhile, on their mission to come and get the kids back, this bit got me a bit, because in all of the episodes so far, it's never seemingly taken them that long to get to Nottingham. But on this one, they need to steal a horse and cart, but then the plan just does thing. But we get back to what turns out to be the Watchtower Maintenance Company.
Yes, so it's a watchtower, not a castle, but it definitely looks like a tiny castle.
And they try and steal a horse with a carriage, and I couldn't work out if this bit was a bit culturally insensitive. Barrington jump starts it.
I think that's more of the fact that Barrington, his character to start with was a bit of an outlaw already, because he's trying to
Yeah.
sell stuff and that kind of thing. It's not outside the realms of possibility that he would have stolen horses and that kind of thing. But the fact that he's trying to explain how to jumpstart a horse. You get these two wires and you stick it here, and it's basically he's just jabbing the horse with a wire and the horse runs off. That would work.
Yeah. I like the fact it kind of calls back to the first episode as well, that he's got everything in his coat.
Yes.
Because he literally pulls them out of his sleeve.
Barrington's utility coat.
Yeah. Shark repellent bat spray, but with Barrington. Yeah, so they're all off. While they do steal it, and it's revealed that both of the watchtower maintenance people are having a pee, and one turns around and they just pee on each other.
That bit, I don't know why. It just cracks me up. It's ridiculous. He just turns around and doesn't notice that he's pissing on his mate until he just sort of looks. I mean, he doesn't even move out the way. He just sort of looks at him angrily.
Yeah. He kind of half shoves him.
Yeah.
But while this is all going on, we see that the Whiteish Knight is observing all of this as well.
He's omnipresent.
And of course, you get the little sting of the theme. We go back to the castle, where King John is hiding in his bed from his brother, and he's terrified. The sheriff comes in and explains the plan and wants to borrow the royal tea set, which is under the bed, which I thought was quite funny.
And King John explains how much the tea set means to him at that point. We'd had a slight mention earlier on, but he really piles it on how important the tea set is.
Yeah. Was it his great-great-great-great-grandfather bargained with it from somebody on the road to Damascus or something like that, wasn't it? And then when they when Gary and the sheriff leave, Gary asks about what the bargaining was, and the sheriff says, well, his great-great-great-grandfather said, give me the tea set or I'll kill you.
Yeah. He said it's worth more than you've ever earned in your life, to which Gary says, what, 87p?
Yeah. But under no circumstances, 100%, should anything happen to the tea set. Got it, everybody?
Almost as if it's setting it up for something.
Yeah. When they come back outside, Graham's admiring his work.
Because he's made costumes where they've all got bunny ears.
Really odd bunny ears.
Sort of almost folk horror Wicker Man kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah. It's the most eloquent Graham's ever been, I think, in this series so far, is when he stood there on his own going, well, I don't mean to blow my own trumpet, but I am really quite happy with how this has turned out.
Perhaps he should have been a primary school teacher or something like that.
Maybe.
Because he does seem to actually quite enjoy, working with the kids and getting them to do their sort of cheerleadery type stuff.
Yeah. He hands out pom-poms to the kids. And because he's the smallest one, little Ron gets the big stick. While we talked about earlier, it's a bit clever how Tony Robinson, the sheriff, doesn't notice it's little Ron. Graham looks little Ron right in the eye and right in the beard and hands him the big stick.
The amount of times he's already been beaten up by little Ron, you'd think he'd maybe remember.
It's like their memories get reset every morning, isn't it?
I mean, to be honest, the amount of times they're whacked over their head, that's probably understandable.
Yeah. They're all about to rehearse when there's a big knock on the door, and it's the pizza wagon.
Yes. Maid Marian has disguised the wagon they stole as a pizza delivery lorry.
Yep. Someone's ordered 5 large pizzas. Gary's over the moon about this.
Well, you would be, wouldn't you? 5 large pizzas. Yeah. Excellent.
Marian's really got into her character because she's saying, like, I closed up the shop for this, but I still managed to get the order. So if someone's ordered them, I deliver them. That's how I work.
She's also made herself a little, like, Hessian pizza. Like, the hats that you get in, the paper hats that you get in Pizza Express?
Yeah.
It's that kind of hat.
Yeah, and an eye patch, because you always need an eye patch.
Yeah.
So the sheriff says that they're not taking these pizzas. Then, as the sheriff sends away, they turn around to realise that not only the tea set is missing, but the children are missing as well.
Yes, because the children have been brought into the back of the wagon, and the sheriff himself put the tea set down on the front of the wagon, so that is his fault.
Yes, it is. He gives chase, only to get knocked out by Little Ron's big stick.
Yep.
Couldn't see it coming.
No.
You know.
I did check. It was 2 minutes and 15 seconds after the laying it on thick about how nothing can happen to the tea set.
Tony Robinson does a lovely, bonk, birds around the head sort of fall.
And then King John turns up.
Yes.
He's angry with them for having lost the tea set. And there are 2 jokes in a row that are almost like sort of airplane type speed of joke. King John says, "Have you got a sore throat? Would you like one?" holding up a saw.
Yes.
And then Sheriff says they need to round up a posse to go and get the kids back, to which point Gary says, "Will this one do?" and picks up a cat.
Yes. And I think the thing that I like about this, as we've talked before about how they don't lay in the joke. The sheriff doesn't say, "No, Gary, not pussy, posse." Yeah. He just goes, "No, not that." He just immediately dismisses him as "Don't be stupid." They talk like they would have spoken.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a conversation. Bless him, Gary's doing his best. He looks so happy to have found what he wanted in 10 seconds flat.
They then get into the forest, which obviously they got there a lot quicker.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the sheriff proclaims, "Don't worry, they're going to be found in 5 minutes." However, 3 hours later, they're still roaming around the forest.
Yes.
Just as the sheriff is about to be strangled by the king, the sheriff recognises the trap from the previous episode.
Which is the most continuity we've had. We've had little bits of continuity, but we've not had anything where there have been jokes set up in one episode and then pay off in the next episode before. And these 2 episodes, we get that a couple of times with these traps, which is great. Yeah.
Because he sets it off and it hits one of Gary or Graham, which confirms to him, "We found it, we're here." And they walk into the hideout, where they find the tea set beautifully laid out on a table.
Yep, with some nice jam tarts on one of the plates in the middle.
I've got down here, the merry men appear in hero pose. So, bows drawn all round this table, followed by the villagers, who Marian describes as a particularly violent parish council.
Which is, yeah, can't argue with that.
Both of us growing up in villages, we can identify a particularly violent parish council.
Oh, God, they're, terrifying. You do not want to mess with the parish council.
Yeah, exactly. Then the children turn up with sticks, still wearing the bunny ears.
Which gives it, like I said earlier, it's kind of a Wicker Man vibe with the kids.
It's it's nice as well that they've all united in. It has a last episode of the series feel to it.
It does, which is good because it is.
Yeah, the villagers aren't scared. The kids aren't scared, and then they threaten to break apart the tea set if they don't get the 1,000 gold coins that were offered to the person that could find the tea set that I believe the king yelled out earlier on.
Yeah, so it's on the table and they've got ropes tied to each leg of the table.
Yeah.
So they keep pulling the legs out and people having to, Gary and Graham have to go and hold an edge of the table each.
Yeah.
And then the sheriff has to come and hold the last one.
Yeah.
A bit of an argument between the sheriff and Marian, because the sheriff points out that they said it's 1,000 gold pieces for any man that does it, and you're a girl.
Yeah.
At which point, Marian says that's really sexist and pulls the rope, so the sheriff has to go and hold 2 ends of the table.
He also gets soaked as well, doesn't he? He
That's a little bit earlier. That's just before when they're going through all the traps.
Yeah, he triggers Chekhov's trap that we talked about in the last episode and gets drenched. But yes, he jumps to rescue the very last bit of the table, and they're all holding it up together. King John relents and is about to hand over the bag of gold when the Whiteish Knight appears.
Indeed.
The Whiteish Knight turns out to be King Richard, and everyone, nearly everyone, drops to a knee.
Including the sheriff, thus dropping the table and smashing the tea set.
Yeah. And thing is, everybody has this proper, like, overjoyed, like, oh my god, it's him. And even when the sheriff's saying sorry for smashing the tea set, he still looks like, oh, he's so dishy about King Richard.
Who turns out to be...
Yeah, well, I've got in here, the king, however, turns out to be a bit of a tosser.
Well, the king is played by Forbes Collins, as in the same actor as King John.
Yeah, there's a bit where Marian still thinks that he's dishy.
Yes, she's still really falling over him,
Yeah.
and it's just disappointing. Stop it.
Yeah, but I like the fact that it's between her and Kelly Bright, who are probably the only women in the show who could feasibly go, oh, that guy's dishy. And Kelly Bright's like, are you mad? He looks exactly like King John.
Quite often, she's one of the cleverest characters, though.
Yeah. That's probably why she's not in the next series. She actually made something of herself. King Richard's actually very happy with the job that John's been doing. He's put in tax reform. He's also wheedled out the troublemakers and all this kind of thing. So he's really, really happy about it.
Yes. It's the complete opposite of the Robin Hood myth where King Richard comes back and is a hero. Some of the original Robin Hood stories have got King Richard actually joining the Merry Men in disguise. Obviously, this doesn't happen in this because him and King John immediately start plotting about what they're going to do to the sheriff for breaking their tea set. Which involves feeding all of the pieces to him, making him swallow a load of glue, then shaking him about so it all sticks back together, and then squeezing him so each part comes back out again.
Which is genius.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get the feeling that we talked about Richard Curtis was script editor on a few of these. I get the feeling that Tony Robinson rang up Richard Curtis going, listen to this insult and listen to this punishment and let me know what you think.
Yes, I think you could be right.
Yeah. However, this doesn't stop the... once he announces all this, the kids, everyone does a cheer and the kids do their routine.
Which is a bit crazy because he's just pointing out that he's going to continue... What he basically says is he's really happy with what John has done and that he's not needed there and he's going to go back to Beirut.
Yeah.
Which explains why we never see him again.
Yeah.
Whereas up until that bit, it seems like a conclusion. And it'd be like, you know, if it was the proper tales of Robin Hood, that's where it ends when King Richard comes back. But obviously it doesn't in this because he's like, oh, no, John's doing all right. I'll bugger off back to Beirut.
I do like the fact that when they're doing the cheer, all the kids are like well into it, apart from Kelly Bright. They do the letters, so it's like R-I-C-H-A-R-D, and then Kelly Bright just goes 1. Yeah, so it's really good fun, and everybody, even the villagers, are like, "Yay, King Richard's back!" and they all go off happily into the night, even though everything's going to stay pretty bad. So it's a weird one because it's like they all banded together against the king and everything, and then with one word of this king that they all really, really like, even though he's a baddie, they've kind of undone all that.
Yeah,
if you get what I mean.
But at the same time, that it's bad for them, but it's good for us because it means we're going to get more series of Maid Marian and Her Merry Men. Because nothing's resolved.
No. Even the sheriff doesn't seem to mind when he's led off to get this really graphic punishment.
Yeah.
Because he's such in awe of Richard the Lionheart. So they all go away. and it's just the Merry Men again, and they rue about how it's all over. You know, Maid Marian and her Merry Men have disbanded.
Yeah, they're talking about going back to what they were doing in episode 1 with the selling rats and Robin making swanky underwear for rich noblemen. And then we get a Marian-inspiring speech.
We do, where she's saying that people are going to remember their escapades for years to come, and that and eventually people will gather round and watch their stories on little glowing boxes, which somehow wins them all back again.
Yeah.
Even Robin.
Although Robin does point out that he thinks it's absurd that people will be watching it on little glowing boxes, he says to the camera.
Yeah, we get a
and then
Marian. Yeah. So that's the end of series 1, and I get the feeling that they wrote it and under the idea of this is the best ending for if we do come back, and it's the best ending for if we don't come back.
Yes. It leaves it open, but at the same time it concludes it.
So what did you think to this episode?
I've always found this episode a little bit weaker than some of the others.
Yeah.
I think it's just because they know that they've got to wrap up the story. And some of it seems a little bit sort of rushed.
Yes.
But at the same time, it's still got some really funny bits in it. But I think it is overall, it's my least favourite in the series.
Yeah.
But it's still the second greatest kids' TV programme of all time after Dark Season.
We're really going to have to try and find a way to work in doing Dark Season, aren't we?
I can't find a Red Dwarf link to it.
No.
I might try and persuade TARDIS Crew to do it because it was written by Russell T Davies, though.
That's a really good idea, yeah.
So yeah, Baz.
I'd like to do it as well, Baz, and I'm sure Mark will jump over both of us like a tum.
We can't.
Yeah.
I'm fighting anyone. If Dark Season happens, I'm fucking talking about it. Mark's done it on right in the childhood, so he's had his chance to talk about it. It's my fucking turn this time.
Very good point. Very good point. Well, for the last time this season, we look to a higher power, and that would be.
Don't tell her that.
Our Maid Marian correspondent, Elodie. So let's hear from Elodie.
Yeah. Okay, back with Elodie for the 6th and final episode of Maid Marian and Her Merry Men Series 1.
Yes.
The Whiteish Knight. What did you think, Elodie?
Good.
Yeah?
Yes.
You appear to be a lot more lively this episode.
I told you it was going to be chaotic.
You are chaotic, you chaotic monster. What was your favourite bit in that episode, Elodie?
Ooh, the Whiteish Knight.
Yeah, I had to show you the context of that, didn't I? Of the original Robin of Sherwood theme tune, which I didn't know because I didn't watch that when I was a kid.
Yes.
So I had to look that up. I knew this version first. What did you think was the funniest bit in that episode?
Ooh, the Whiteish Knight.
Okay, fair enough. What did you think about the fact that King Richard came back and he was exactly the same as King John?
Ooh, the Whiteish Knight.
That's a helpful answer, Elodie. What did you really think, though?
Ooh, the Whiteish Knight.
You're a buttock. Can you answer the question?
Yeah. Ooh, the Whiteish Knight.
Okay. Actually, though.
Okay. Sorry.
How do you think they did it? How do you think they made it so that there were two actors the same?
I'm shrugging my shoulders.
Yeah, that doesn't work on an audio podcast.
I know I'm saying I'm shrugging my shoulders.
Okay, fair enough. It would have been what's called split screen technique, where they'd have filmed part of it with him standing in one place and then part of it with him standing in another place and then put it back together with a computer. So, do you think that was a good ending to the series?
Huh?
Do you think it rounded up the story nicely? Do you think it...
No.
No. It leaves you wanting more, definitely, doesn't it? Which is good, because
No.
there are 3 more series that we'll go through later on.
There's 27 more series.
There are not 20. I wish there were 27 more series, but no, there were 4 and a bit series. 4 series and a Christmas special.
Ooh, the Whiteish Knight.
Anything else you want to particularly say about that episode, Elodie?
Ooh, the Whiteish Knight.
Well done. Right, say bye to the people.
The end. Goodbye. Ooh, the Whiteish Knight.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Ooh, the Whiteish Knight. Goodbye.
Well, there we go.
Completely crazy as usual.
Yeah. Also, since that was recorded, we now have to draw up a brand new contract for when we come back and do Series 2.
She's asking for millions.
Yeah, she wants more money. We try to tell her that we don't make any money, but she wants that money. So we're just going to have to get away with... I know she's going to have to appear on every podcast on the Film Stories Network.
That could be interesting on some of them.
Yeah.
Vampire videos.
Yeah. I thoroughly look forward to seeing her talking about Lost with Kurt.
She'll probably understand it as well as I did, some of it.
If Kurt wasn't already balded and ripped his hair out by the end of that episode.
What I might need to do is just pay her off by getting her some sweets or something.
Ah, yes. We forgot about the sweets thing. Anyway. So, yeah, that is the end of Series 1. What are you looking forward to seeing, or what are you hoping to see in Series 2, Colin?
I'm hoping that it will be more of the same quality, but that's good, because I know it is.
Yeah.
I've got Series 2 on DVD as well. It's Series 3 and 4 that I don't remember as well, because I haven't got them on DVD.
Right,
But
okay.
we will eventually get to them and do those. Yeah. So, yeah, it will happen.
Good. I'm looking forward to seeing...
One day, Mark, stop nagging.
I'm looking forward to seeing how the writing develops, with people getting more established and settling into their characters more.
Yeah, there are jokes from the later series that I still remember really, really well.
Thank you for joining us on this brief... I can't remember the word now. Brief journey into...
Sojourn
into Worksop. We will be back soon, as soon as we've tightened up our tights and put some ropes in some trees. But until next time, ek hek hek ek ek hek hek hek.
Ah, the Whiteish Knight.